In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the sort of some of the structures of the skeletal system and also looking at the functions of the skeletal system. We're going to look a little bit about how bones are structured on the inside, but also talk about the names of some of the bones. So this will be the first of the body systems that we're going to look at in a little more depth. All right, to start with, you need to know that the skeletal system includes bones, but also ligaments, tendons, and cartilage. The functions of the skeletal system are to support and protect and allow us to move around. You were probably already aware of those functions, but also the skeletal system is involved with storing minerals. So we know that most of you probably know that your bones have calcium, or you need to have calcium in order for your bones to be healthy, but you're storing that calcium in the bones. So it's actually a storage place for that calcium along with other things. The other thing you may or may not be aware of is that the skeletal system's job is also to make blood cells. So your blood is actually produced within the bones of the skeletal system. Now, we classify bones a couple of different ways. There are 206 bones in your body, and each is either part of the axial skeleton or the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton, think of that as being kind of along the middle part of your body. You have your skull, your vertebrae or your vertebral column, which is your backbone, and you have your ribs. So that's running along kind of the center of your body. And then you have your appendicular skeleton, which are the bones on the outside of the middle of your body, the bones of your arms and your legs, your fingers and your toes. So if we look at this diagram, you see that in purple here, along the center, we have our axial skeleton. It says blue, but it kind of looks purple to me. We have the skull, we have the ribs, and also the vertebral column, or the vertebrae of the backbone. Then we have in pink the appendicular skeleton, your arms, fingers, your pelvis, and your legs and foot bones. Now, another way that bones are classified is by their shape. We have our long bones, which are the bones of your limbs, such as this one, your femur. We have our short bones, such as the bones of the wrist and ankle. This is a whole load of bones that you have right in your wrist called carpal bones, and you can see they're short. Then we have flat bones, such as the bone of your sternum, which is your breastbone right in the center of your chest. And also your rib bones are considered flat bones and bones of your skull. And then finally we have irregular bones, such as some of your skull bones are very irregularly shaped. They're oddly shaped. Your pelvis and the vertebrae of your backbone. This example is your sphenoid bone, which is part of your skull. So here are some more examples. We have a long bone, such as your humerus of your arm. We have short bones like your carpals. We have flat bones, such as the parietal bone that's up on the top of your head. And then we have irregular bones, such as the vertebrae of your backbone. Now let's talk a little bit about bone structure. Bones are organs, and they're made up of living cells. A lot of people don't really think about that because they're so hard and tough, and it seems like you maybe just have some kind of wood inside your body, or I don't know, metal or something, but it's actually living cells. All bones have an outer layer called compact bone and an inner layer called spongy bone. And compact and spongy bone are made up of these living cells, and they have blood vessels running through them like all living tissue does. In the center area is the bone marrow, and it's in the bone marrow of the long bones that blood cells are made. So we're talking here in most cases, this kind of structure is seen in the long bones, such as the long bones of your arms and your legs. So we have the periosteum, which is the membrane that surrounds the bone. We have the compact bone, also called cortical bone. We have the spongy bone, also called cancellous bone. And then we have the bone marrow where the blood cells are made. Here's another way of looking at that. Again, we have spongy bone, which is seen here, kind of have spaces in between. We have the bone marrow running down the middle, and then we have the outer compact bone, which is denser and harder. Here's a little up-close picture of some bone. I believe this is a flat bone of the skull. But here we have the spongy bone, and around the outside, the compact bone. You can see it looks very, very different. Now let's talk a little bit about bone growth. The skeletal system starts out as entirely cartilage when you're a tiny little fetus inside of your mother. And around the 3rd month of gestation, that is the 3rd month into pregnancy, the calcium begins to be deposited in the bone. And this is what makes the bone hard and strong. This process is called ossification. Ossification is the depositing of calcium into the bone and strengthening of the bone. There are special cells called osteoblasts whose job it is to deposit the calcium. So the osteoblasts cause the ossification to occur by putting the calcium into the bone. So in order to have healthy bones, you do need calcium. You also need vitamin D and phosphorus. These are all important things to have in your diet and to make sure that you have so that your bones will grow normally and they will be good and strong. Some of you are still growing and you're still going to be needing to make sure you have enough calcium and vitamin D and phosphorus. Without proper nutrition and exercise is extremely important. We'll talk more about that in class, but exercise is extremely important for healthy bones. Without this, bones don't develop normally, and even healthy, mature bones could deteriorate or become diseased. Now let's talk a little bit about the relationship between muscles and bones. Just so that you know definitions, bones are held together by ligaments, and ligaments are composed of tissue called dense connective tissue. Okay, so when bones are being held together at a joint, that structure that's holding them is called a ligament. Tendons are the ones that are holding muscles to bone. So tendons allow movement because the tendon is going to connect the muscle to the bone. So when the muscle contracts, it pulls on the bone and it allows you to walk or run or jump or play the guitar or whatever you like to do. So tendons are different from ligaments, but they are both made up of dense connective tissue. Tendons connect muscle to bone. Ligaments connect bone to bone. And then finally, cartilage is also part of the skeletal system. Cartilage is sort of a softer, flexible tissue, and it's found on the ends of your bones in the joints, as well as there's also a fluid in your joints called synovial fluid, and it allows joints to move freely and without any pain. So we do all these movements of our wrists and our fingers and our knees and our feet and our legs, our elbows, everything moving, and we don't generally feel any pain because the soft cartilage cushions the ends of the bones, and also there's fluid in there to allow for some easy movement. So if we look at a joint such as the knee, we see all the connections between all of these different parts. Here we have the tibia, which is the top of the lower leg, and we have the patella, which is your kneecap. This is a little bone in here. And then you can see here, this is the synovial capsule. So this is a capsule containing fluid that is going to lubricate the knee as it moves. And then you'll notice that we have a couple of muscles, the vastus medialis and the vastus lateralis, and they're going to be connected to the patella and the lower leg by these tendons. And then you'll also notice here, holding the knee together, bone to bone. So here we have the femur bone, which you can't see under these muscles. The femur is attached to the tibia and the patella, and you have ligaments holding it all together. The tibial collateral ligament is going to be holding all of that together, including this little bitty bone behind the tibia, which is called the fibula. So you can see all this white part, or the light pink part, are tendons and ligaments. Ligaments holding bone to bone, tendons holding muscle to bone. Now a little bit about diseases that can occur in the skeletal system. I do like you to sometimes be aware of diseases. Arthritis is one. Arthritis is when you have severe pain in the joints and they're difficult to move. This may be due to age, which is called osteoarthritis, which happens to some people as they age. Or even in young people, they can get arthritis, and that's called rheumatoid arthritis. And the cause of rheumatoid arthritis is inflammation. So there's actually an autoimmune thing going on where the body's actually kind of attacking its own joints. Then there's osteoporosis, which occurs in older age. It's more common in women. And this is a loss of bone mass due to demineralization of the bone, which could come from a lack of calcium and vitamin D, proper nutrition, or a lack of exercise. So as you grow older, if you are a girl, it's a good idea to get some exercise. Rickets is due to improper nutrition. This is characteristic appearance of the bones due to not having grown properly due to poor nutrition. Lack of calcium and vitamin D. And then finally, scoliosis is a curvature of the spine that's inherited in family, so it's a genetic disorder. Here are some images that can help you to understand. This is a arthritic hand. So here in the joint, there's some inflammation going on, some pain. Here shows normal bone, spongy bone. And in the case of osteoporosis, you can see there's been a loss of mass of the bone. Here on the left, you have a case of rickets. This is what happens to the bone. They're abnormally curved due to a lack of nutrition. And then finally, here is a diagram or a picture of a child with scoliosis. You can see the spine is curved and it's not straight like a normal spine would be. Okay, at this point, the lesson is over, and if you are listening to the whole video, you can stop now. You don't have to write any of this down. I'm adding these last couple of slides just to see who's really listening and who is just looking at the words. So I'm just going to let the time tick out, and if you are listening, you may stop writing notes, and you're finished with this lesson.